Welcome to Soul Wellness with Kristen, where we get into the nitty-gritty of various holistic modalities and explore exactly how they help you heal. I'm your host, Kristen, and I invite you to join me on this enlightening expedition where we explore the connection between mind, body, and spirit. In each episode, we'll talk in depth with holistic providers, medical professionals, therapists, and healers. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge, inspire you with stories of resilience, and provide practical tools that you can integrate into your daily life. So, find a comfortable space and join us as we explore the multifaceted world of holistic wellness. Get ready to learn how to improve every aspect of your life and simply feel good. The adventure begins now. Thank you for joining us. Today I have Heather Corsello with me, and she is a licensed clinical social worker with Cardinal Counseling and Wellness. She is also a tenant here at Soul Wellness. So welcome, Heather.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kristen. I'm so excited to be here.
I love that you are here. I think counseling is such a huge part of wellness, yes. And I know that a lot of modalities in this center, people are making epiphanies and they need someone to talk to sometimes. Absolutely. So it's really good to have you here. I wanted to kind of start this conversation with, how do you know that you need a counselor? Instead of calling your best friend and dumping on them, how do you know that it's time to actually sign up for counseling?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so what I typically tell individuals is, you're ready to see a counselor when you really feel like, I've tried everything and I can't stop this feeling. I can't stop a feeling of, I need to keep talking about this. Maybe I can't move on. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of perseverating on the same topic or ruminating on something. Maybe it's just an icky feeling in your gut. And a lot of times when you feel like, I have a lot of clients that'll come in and go, I feel like I'm telling my mom or my best friend the same thing over and over again, and they're not quite sure to help me. Mm-hmm. That's when you might know, okay, I need to see a counselor. And that would be more for things like, I'm thinking anxiety, things that are beginning to impact your daily living routines. So activities of daily living. It's hard for you to maybe get through work, and maybe you are feeling really down. Maybe it's hard to get up in the morning. That might potentially be some depression, and maybe it would really be a good idea to talk to someone about it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people can start by going to their doctor. They can also go to maybe someone else that's in the mental health realm just to get an idea of, hey, do I need to talk to somebody? And a lot of times people will know that. I always tell my clients, we might not solve all the problems, but I just want you to feel some peace when you leave my office.
Right.
It might be difficult, but peace. When you start to feel that inner peace, that, okay, I can keep going. It might be hard, but I'm doing better. Mm-hmm. That's when, when people are like, I can't get through this. I don't know how I'm going to make it through. And you start getting what I call, Dr. Daniel Amen calls them ants, automatic negative thoughts. When you start having those and you can't get them out, and you're like, okay, I keep having these same negative thoughts. I don't know, my mom's not helping anymore, my best friend's not helping. That's when you might need to talk to someone. Maybe coping strategies, maybe you're well versed in coping strategies. Maybe you've seen a counselor in the past, mm-hmm. and you're like, okay, the same coping strategies I've been using for years just aren't helping. It's kind of like needing a refresh, a reboot maybe.
Yeah.
Going and just asking for some extra help, and no shame in that game, because people might be able to give you an idea or a partial idea that you thought, I never even considered that.
Right.
Just another outlook.
I think validation is huge too. And when you go to a counselor is going to be able to very much validate mm-hmm. what you're feeling, how you're reacting, mm-hmm. and that's a huge piece of it.
Yeah. One of the first things I tell individuals when they come in is, you're not alone, first off.
Right.
And I love being in this building and being with these other practitioners because, quite honestly, Soul Wellness works so hard to take that stigma and really, really squash it with mental health. Mm-hmm. I can't talk to anyone, right? But so often, so many people are walking around with automatic negative thoughts, thinking, I'm the only one that's feeling this. Look at everyone else able to go through their daily life and have no worries, which we know is not true.
Right.
But when you're in that mindset, that's what you can really think. And so here, I always tell people, I want to validate you for coming in. I want to congratulate you for coming in. This was a really hard step. And I always say acknowledgement, believe it or not, is 50% of the equation to eventually problem solve. The fact that you're acknowledging, yes, I need help. And then to have a counselor sit with you and go, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
This is all I try to tell people as much as I can, this is, quote, and I'm using air quotes, normal right now, whatever normal is, because people walk around with these feelings thinking, I'm all alone, and they're not. Or they think of the stigma of, there must be something wrong with me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are just going through the human experience.
Yeah. And the human experience is difficult.
That's correct. That is absolutely
We signed
correct.
up for a very difficult experience here on Earth. Hands
right.
down. You see a lot of anxiety and depression, correct?
I do. Yeah.
And you see all ages, don't you?
I do. I would see anyone from about 5 all the way up to, depending on if they wanted to use medical insurance, which I do encourage if you do have the opportunity, up to about 64. I am not credentialed anymore, unfortunately, with Medicare, which is for individuals 65 and up, which again, I encourage strongly. If you have it, use it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I see all ages. I spent many, many years, about 17, in the school systems, where I'm originally from in Illinois, and here in North Carolina for about 7 years. And so I love working with children.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Love it, love it, love it. And I primarily worked with students that were kindergarten through about 6th grade, but I did kind of see some kids in high school and middle school as well. And they're always a riot, always a fun time. And then previous to working in schools, I actually worked in long-term care, and I always like to joke that there's really not much difference between seniors and children.
Right?
They're really great,
Yep.
and they have such a great energy, and so I actually also love working with individuals that are seniors. I love working with end-of-life care at times. It is such a rewarding, beautiful experience.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about triggers. We were talking about that earlier before we hit record, and we all get triggered. It seems like everybody has kind of a short fuse these days.
Correct.
And you can see it on the roadways. You can see it everywhere.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that. And no one is here without a trigger.
Correct.
So
yep. If you woke up today and you are
if you're breathing.
Yep, if you're lucky enough for your brainstem to be working and you're breathing, you've got a trigger.
Yeah.
And so yes, triggers are huge, and the hardest thing with triggers is, again, feeling that shame when you are triggered eventually. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the idea of when we are triggered, there's something very specific that happens in our brain. And triggers can be different for everyone. Triggers can make us feel angry. They can make us feel sad. They can make us feel worried. They can make us feel frightened or, scared. And the way our brain is set up is, I'm going to use a model by Dr. Dan Siegel. He is out of UCLA. He is a psychiatrist. He's amazing. But Dr. Siegel talks about the hand-brain model. And what the hand-brain model does, if you can't see it, because I'm on a podcast, which is so exciting, but Dr. Siegel talks about if you take your hand and you kind of make a fist, but you tuck in your thumb, the palm of your hand is going to be your brainstem, and that's where a lot of our people lovingly refer to it as the reptilian brain is. So that is those automatic functions, breathing, movement, blinking, swallowing,
digestion.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, it's funny you should say that, because when Dr. Siegel talks about the hand-brain model, he talks about the head brain, because we also have gut brain and we have a heart brain, knowing more and more about how our body is formed, which is just amazing, right? And so that's your brain stem. Down below on your wrist is like your spinal cord, and again, all connected. And then in the middle is your limbic system, and your amygdala is in there, and that's your thumb. And we'll talk a little bit more about that guy in a little bit, but that's where like your emotions are. And if our brain stem, as Dr. Siegel says, has been there for about 3,000 years, our limbic system has been there for about 2,000, right? And this is really a lot of our feelings. And then when you kind of take your hands and you cross them down over your thumb and you kind of make that cool brain looking movement, your fingers and your fingertips, so down from the bottom of your, I guess, knuckles, your bottom knuckles to your fingertips is what we would call our prefrontal cortex. And that's our thinking brain. Our thinking brain is where we are able to process all that higher level stuff and executive functioning and all that cool stuff, right? Well, when we feel an emotion and we get triggered, our thinking brain flips. And so what I'm doing now is I've got my thumb in by my palm and I've got my fingertips straight up. When we are triggered, when we get angry, when we get cut off on the road, my husband knows this well. He was just cut off at a mall the other day. And his brain went offline, or his lid flipped is what we would say. And I had to look at him and say, hey, honey, nope, bring it back down online.
Yeah.
He really doesn't love that. But I did. And so when you are triggered, there's no way that you're going to hear many things and that you are going to do something that is not from either your limbic system, which is that feeling center, or from the palm, which is that automatic brainstem. A lot of thinking's not happening. That's why when people go through road rage incidences, half the time they can't even remember fully what happened. If you call 911 and then you talk to someone and they say, I don't even remember saying half of what I said, it's because your brain is flipped. You're in an emergency situation.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is fright, flight, fright, freeze, fawn. And what that is that's basically our automatic. Remember how I told you I'd talk about that thumb later? The amygdala is going off and it's saying, danger, danger, danger. You're in danger. Now, this system that we had in place 2,000 years ago, it might have been when we encountered a woolly mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger or a tar pit and we fell into it. And then our limbic system and our amygdala is going off, going, danger, danger, we got to get out of this, right? How does that impact us now? Well, now we don't have woolly mammoth and, a tar pit, but we do have everyday triggers that are going off. Cell phones. We have drama maybe happening in our interpersonal relationships. We have bills that we have to pay. We have a job we have to get to on time, because if we don't get to the job on time, then guess what? We might get written up. Some of us might have children, and the children get sick, and then they have to be called out of school, and then, oh no, now we can't go to aforementioned job. How are we going to pay for things now? And all of these things build and build and build. And sometimes some people's lids can flip quicker than others.
Right.
And when that happens, again, not only are we not doing a lot of thinking, but all those hormones in our body are rushing, the cortisol, the adrenaline. So we're not able to fully decide, this was a good decision I just made, right? What can we do though, right? Because what we do need to eventually do is get our brain back online, put our lid back down, and tell our amygdala it's okay. If you were a child right now, when I was in schools, what we would do is we would tell them, your brain is like a barn. And what's a really wise bird that flies at night?
An owl.
That's correct. The owl kind of sits on top of the barn and keeps watch. But the owl heard a noise and got scared, triggered. It flew away. The barn door flew open, lid was flipped, and in the barn, there's these barn dogs, right? And they help. They're guard dogs. Well, that's your amygdala, and it's going off. And it's saying danger, danger, danger. And so we would tell children, we want to get your brain back online. we a lot of times would tell that to teens as well, that idea of online or offline, right? Flipped, which would be offline. Online means you're ready to learn, you're ready to think again. And so that's when we would talk to children about mindfulness exercises. Adults can do the same thing. They can do some deep breathing, and something maybe someday we could talk about more, which is stimulating that vagus nerve, right? There's so many ways to do that. But once you truly do that, we can tuck our amygdala back in, put the guard dog back in the barn, get the barn door closed, or put your brain back online, and you no longer are flipping your lid. However, triggers are always happening. And so when triggers are always happening, that's where we need to use coping strategies. So you could use some grounding exercises, taking some deep breaths, maybe looking for your favorite color and looking around a room and finding it. What you're going to realize is when your lid is flipped and you're kind of freaking out, we tend to breathe in a more shallow pattern. That's the worst thing we can do. Our brain will not get back online then. The best way you can get your brain back online is taking a deep breath in through your nose, through your nostrils, and then you literally will whoosh it out through your mouth. For kids, we would say you're going to sniff a flower and then blow out some birthday candles. Same thing with adults. I know it sounds childish, but it's what I think of. Or I think of blowing bubbles when I was a kid. Because what will then happen is eventually, if you take enough deep breaths, you will stimulate that vagus nerve, which goes from the top of your head until your bowels, that gut health again, that gut brain. So it goes from your head brain through your heart and past your heart brain and down through your gut brain, right? And so what it will do then, hopefully, is it will truly bring a calming presence. Now, a lot of people will say, but Heather, deep breathing doesn't work for me. And it might not. But then there might be other things you can do to get your brain back online. Maybe it's something as simple as my children love to say, touching grass, getting back into nature.
Oh, yeah, grounding. Huge.
Yep. If you're at work, maybe it's just sitting in your chair, putting your back against the back of the chair if you have it, if you're not in like a stool, and just going, okay, where is my back in space? How do my legs feel against the chair and my feet feel firmly planted on the ground? I am here in space.
Yeah, you're making yourself present, feeling presence.
And giving yourself enough space. I have lots of clients that will come in and say, I don't feel like I deserve to take the space up. Yeah, you do.
I feel like there's a big component when you are triggered that there's then the rush of guilt that you just behaved this way.
Correct.
Even though the trigger is very real in those moments. It's very emotional. But then there's that backlash, like maybe once your brain comes back online, you have the beating up. You couldn't be more right. Those are those automatic negative thoughts, those ants. I like to give the visual that it's like now they've come to the picnic and they're just in your head, right? And you are absolutely right. When we do come back online, there is a huge shame rush. We do it with kids, and I've unfortunately done it as a parent, I'm sure, and you always try to make it right after, which we can talk a little bit about that as well, because everybody makes mistakes. But also that idea of shame, and that's a huge stigma that we need to break. And when I talk to clients, I will say, look, the biggest thing you need to do is be loving to yourself afterwards. You are just a human being. Yeah.
You will not be perfect. No one will. And then we'll talk about how does it look to be kind to yourself, to be kind and grace-filled and loving to others, and to stop shaming yourself. Shame has such a negative connotation over all of our lives. I just had a client recently in my office that said, I don't understand why I'm talking about this with you. It happened years ago. And I said, do you still feel badly about it? And they said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I said, you just haven't healed that shame yet. And they said, okay, well, if I heal that shame, will I heal every other shame? And I said, the hope is yes. But again, you're still a human.
Yeah.
And you might have to talk about it a little bit some more. And it kind of comes full circle back to what you were talking about at the beginning. Kristen, of how do I know when I need to go speak to someone? And when those automatic negative thoughts, when that shame, when that anxiety of, I can't stop thinking about these intrusive thoughts, or maybe I can't get up in the morning and I don't know why. Why do I feel so lousy? And maybe for a long period of time, you have been able to kind of keep the shame at bay or keep the guilt at bay. When you're like, oh boy, I can't do it anymore on my own, that's when you might need someone to walk alongside you. I tell my clients all the time, I'll never tell you what to do. This is your life. But I like to go hiking. Even if you're an outdoorsy person, I tell people, imagine we're on a path. That path could start off very, very calm. Maybe there's a beautiful babbling brook next to it or a lake. Maybe you're in Lake Norman State Park. I don't know. And as we're walking, the path could get progressively harder. Maybe it's no longer paved. Maybe it's getting a little rocky. Then maybe I might see some other paths we could go down. I might gently try to guide you down those paths. Ultimately, it's your decision if we go down there. You could tell me no. But either way, it's for you to gain growth and to reduce shame and stigma. And to develop coping strategies. When someone leaves my office, I say, even though it might have been hard, all I want you to take from this is an inner peace of I can keep going and I've got this, right? Now, with that being said, we're all human. You are going to be triggered. You are going to have hard things come your way. And to start, some of that success might seem not long or short-lived. That's normal too, because it's just like running a marathon. I don't start running a marathon by running 26.2 miles, right? No, not at all. In fact, I would overextend myself, I'd be exhausted, and I would fail. And so I tell individuals a lot of times you start seeing a gradual lifting about, I would say, 4 to maybe 8 weeks. Why? Because your brain is developing endurance. And a lot of times we always used to hear that old adage of it takes 30 days to build a habit or to break a habit.
Right.
It's actually more than that. After we did, studies have been done in schools and stuff, and to get truly good data it could take 6 to 8 weeks or longer, right? And so we should be gentle with ourselves. Unfortunately, in society, with all that anxiety going on of you have to have immediate results, right? You have to be good after one session. You have to figure it all out. You have to have everything done, right?
Yeah.
We don't take enough time for ourselves to actually make a consistent change. So I will have clients that'll come in and go, well, I tried to speak nicely to myself. Well, how long did you speak nicely to yourself? Oh, a day or two. And I said, that's great. If you weren't doing it before, guess what? You've made great success. But you have to keep going.
Yeah.
We're so used to that automatic, positive, just quick like or affirmation in our head, but it doesn't always have lasting results.
Yeah. I feel like social media has played a part in a lot of our mental health issues because you're flipping through, you're looking at other people's lives, everything looks just perfect and beautiful in these pictures, and nobody is without their issues, and nobody is without their
just issues and anxieties and worries and triggers themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no perfect picture anywhere.
You're exactly right. And it's funny just doing this work, and I'm older, and so starting that idea of social media, social media used to be one of those things where we didn't quite know what to do, right? And then it became this curated, perfect platform. And really, I actually look at it kind of cynically.
I do too, a little bit.
That if you have a perfectly curated social media account, more than likely there's some stuff underneath. And there is really some stuff underneath the carpet. And it's like, ooh, what are you hiding there? Now, I say that kind of tongue in cheek because maybe there truly are those rare individuals that everything is really, really good most of the time. Or maybe they work really hard to have a curated social media for sales and marketing reasons. Right. And they are very in their, I guess, real lives, honest and open about, no, I don't have everything perfect. But it can be very damaging to a lot of other individuals, especially kids, teens, individuals like new moms, that they are really, really searching for, what is the best thing I can do and how can I put my best foot forward? But the truth is, we're all messy. Mm-hmm. We can all be triggered. And social
life
media
is. And it's amazing what you carry around in your little luggage on your back from decades ago and childhood, and how impressionable you were as a young child and programmed. And someone said the other day, you are so programmed from 0 to age 7 or so, and then you work the rest of your life to undo all of that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you could have a great childhood. You could have wonderful things happen to you. But here's the thing. Everybody is going to have little traumas or little hurts. And what we end up doing is, that old quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And it really is true, because I'll have people come into the office and go, I don't know why I'm talking about this. It happened so long ago. Well, obviously it is impressionable on you because you're talking about it now, and that's great, and that is okay. And I'll tell people, that's normal. It's okay. Your feelings are valid, right? Could I sound any more hippy-dippy? But your feelings are valid. The other thing, though, is your trauma is traumatic for you. So everyone is going to have a different way that a traumatic event or an event is going to impact them. Studies will show that kids, I'm actually one of 4 children, and I had a great upbringing. I'm the oldest. But kids will, show through the years, if you interviewed me and my 3 siblings, each one of us could probably have a slightly different perspective on the same exact event that happened.
For sure, yeah.
Doesn't mean my parents screwed me up or did something that they shouldn't have. Not at all. If anything, it's just how I am perceiving the world, right? And so it really is something that I tell people, don't feel shame about. But what we end up doing is we compare. So I could go, well, how come my younger sister didn't feel this way? Maybe I'm the problem. Or how could she feel that way? That must be her problem, right? Mm-hmm. And either way, what are we invoking, either on ourselves or others? Shame.
Yeah.
And shame is something, just like anxiety is something that is actually not a bad thing. I do tell clients that anxiety is funny because, again, it's that thing of we don't want to get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger, right? But right now, it's still a good thing. Anxiety is what sets an alarm to get you up in the morning to go to your job. If you didn't have some of this anxiety, you probably would just be, I like to say, like a slug.
Right.
You wouldn't move around a lot. So it's not a bad thing. It's when it becomes too much. We have those intrusive thoughts all the time. We can't calm ourselves down. Our lid is always flipped. We feel very irritable.
It's like it's taking over.
It is taking over, yes.
It's not there to guide you and help push you. It's actually taking over your life.
And what I like to say is, on the inverse, shaming people is really not a good thing. And the reason being is shame is a way to control others. We've used it for millennia. They've used it in several different ways. We used it in tribes. And when we were in tribes as cave people, we would shame individuals. Why? So we could keep them in the tribe. So we could keep the tribe together. Mm-hmm. Those were our little rules and our little ways to keep people together. And what we need to do is accept the anxiety to an extent. It's not a bad thing. But then get rid of the shame. And don't allow people to impose that I'm going to make you feel bad for having anxiety or for feeling sad, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah. And very relatable, because we all have our little blips in life.
And everybody makes, I tell people all the time, everybody makes mistakes. People will look at me and go, oh, I bet you're the best this, the best parent, the best, social worker. Nope. A lot of this is learned. A lot of this is not just schooling, but just going through life.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot. As social media can be a double-edged sword, you can learn a lot on YouTube, a lot of great things that will really spread knowledge of wonderful, wonderful things that are out there for people to learn more about themselves so that they can relate better to others, so that they can have better interpersonal relationships. I make mistakes just like everybody else, and I had talked a little bit about that before and making it right. That's what I tell individuals. After working with individuals that are neurodivergent, perhaps on the autism spectrum, perhaps with ADHD, I noticed that a lot of kiddos, they really were triggered if I said, you need to apologize, right? You need to say sorry. And so instead, we kind of switched it up where I was working at one of the schools I was in Illinois to let's write a make it right letter, not an apology letter. And so I do this to this day with my own children, my own family members. I will go and make it right. And what does that apology look like, or making it right look like? It looks like, okay, I know I flipped my lid. I was wrong. This is why I might have done it, but I don't put blame on the other person. I'm sorry that I did it. I'm going to try very hard to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's the other thing about flipping our lid. A lot of times when we flip our lid, what ends up coming out is what? Anger, right?
Yeah.
But I always say a lot of people's sad can become mad. It looks mad. A lot of people's fear looks angry.
Agreed.
And what ends up happening is then I show an anger response because I am in fight, flight, fright, or freeze. And so that anger response might be me yelling. And so what is the other person going to think?
Oh, you're mad.
They're mad. But maybe I'm scared because my child ran into the road.
Yeah.
But we don't know that, right? And so that's, again, those interpersonal relationships and how important it is to go, okay, people are going to fight. People are going to make mistakes. People are going to say things they shouldn't. Let's try our hardest to make it right. A lot of times people will come into the office and go, well, I know it's not right that my child has seen me and my partner fight. And I said, well, it depends. First of all, it's completely silly to think that someone's never going to see you have a conflict with another person. But let's talk about what it looks like. If it's physical in nature, okay, we'll talk about that. That's not great.
Yeah.
But if it's you guys having a disagreement, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
People are going to say things, people are going to do things. But what I encourage individuals to do, because a lot of people will come in as adults and go, I don't know if my parents even made up from that. Show them how you make up. How does that look in your home?
Yeah.
That's really important. Conflict resolution is a skill that is learned. It's not just there.
And probably shutting down and not speaking at all is learned too.
That's exactly right. And what that is that's under the freeze model.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people think, oh, if you freeze, you might be scared. And I'm thinking in my head, well,
or not care. I think that it can come across like you don't care.
Yep. And that's not true at all.
Yeah.
A lot of times individuals that end up freezing do it because they are processing things and it's happening so quickly. And the other thing I will let individuals know, and I'll use myself as an example so you know you're not alone. When I was younger and I reflected on the hand-brain model now as an adult, I realized I was a firstborn. I was a people pleaser. I'm a former perfectionist, and I would fly, which means, what would little Heather do? Heather would ride her bike. If Heather could get away, she would either go to her room or she would ride her bike. When I got married, my spouse, who's a wonderful human, I would safely want to leave and drive away in my car. Not to leave as an abandonment issue, but just to get some space and clarity. I always made sure I was safe enough to drive, though. Well, my spouse ended up telling me, drive away, you always do. For him, it became an abandonment thing, and it wasn't for me.
Wow.
Now, my spouse and he knows that sometimes I will bring him up lovingly in sessions to let people know they're not alone.
Yeah.
He will shut down. And we have learned over the years that I will either want to fly or I will want to, and this is my anxiety coming out, will want to talk about it right away. We've had to develop code words. We've had to develop time limits, because what has happened is my spouse will feel pressured to speak when he is not ready because of my anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And so to not put my anxiety onto him, we've come up with code words. We've come up with, okay, I will give you 30 minutes. Let me know if you're ready then. Mm-hmm. And so it really just depends on what works best for others. But, you know, there are other times when I've noticed if I am backed into a corner, I will never physically fight necessarily, but I might verbally fight. And that's where the flight comes from. I know, being a former perfectionist and a people pleaser, I don't want to say something that will hurt someone else. But if I'm backed into a corner, I might.
Right.
And so we can have all different sorts of reactions. A lot of times people will be like, well, I never fly, I only fight. No, that's not true. I bet you do, you just don't realize it. In fact, for the longest time I thought, well, my partner's the one that always shuts down. I don't shut down. I do. If a loved one, usually an older loved one, like a parent, were to reprimand me, needing to, right? Like not putting any shame, but like, Heather, you shouldn't have done that. I would immediately shut down. Mm-hmm. And I would freeze. And then I would notice, and this is something that a lot of people talk about, and they always wonder, what is that? A fawn behavior. Fawning behavior, and it's a lot of people are like, you mean like a baby deer?
Yeah.
Yep. It is, but it's kind of fawning, the verb of fawning over someone, right? And so mine was done out of a way to people please again. Please don't dislike me. And so I might get a reprimand from a teacher, not necessarily in a bad way, but just, Heather, I need you to stop talking. Look at that, I was a chatty Cathy, go figure. And so I would then shut down. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just got scolded for talking, I have to stop. And then I might think, and this is my anxiety coming through, my need for validation. What can I do to now make my teacher feel better or to make her happy again, right? I'm going to fawn. I'm going to give her, not things, but I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to hold the door open. I'm going to be the best little student, right?
Yeah.
And fawning a lot of times we see, unfortunately, in individuals that have backgrounds in abuse. And that can be, that idea of, I don't want to upset the person that I know is going to become very physically angry perhaps, or, I don't want them to flip their lid. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do everything I can to kind of try to manipulate the situation in a way to their advantage, the abuser's advantage, so that I don't get hurt. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to say that you can still have these behaviors and not have gone through abuse, that kind of stuff. But it is all very natural.
Yeah.
So there is a very primitive component to it, which is through that brainstem and that limbic system. But then there is also a behavioral component to it. So people might go, okay, I acted this way and then I got praised, so I'm going to continue doing this. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes people will go, I can't believe that all those things are linked, but they really are. We're very complex.
We are. It's
human beings.
It's so fascinating. Mm-hmm. It really is. But perception and what you view as traumatic to you may not be what somebody else views as traumatic to them. It's just we are very complicated. Mm-hmm. But we're here to learn and grow with each other and evolve. And that's what it's all about. Right. We would not have signed up for this human experience if it was just going to be a little
being a slug.
Yeah, just lay back and have a good time all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, people will find out that if you just lay back and have a good time all the time, eventually, believe it or not, that gets old.
Right. You want a little something to work on, don't you?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, this has been really a great conversation. Tell everybody how to find you. What's the easiest way to find you?
The easiest way to find me is to actually go to Soul Wellness's website. I have a profile there, and it is www.soulwellness.net. And then when you look, there's some great providers there. I am one of many, and you'll find my page. My name's Heather Corsello. I have an email. You can reach me at cardinalcounselingwellness@gmail.com, and I would love to chat with you.
And what's your website?
I have one, but it's actually through Psychology Today or Headway.
Okay.
Which is very interesting, I know, but I use two different. So if you search my name under headway.com, you can find me there.
Okay.
Or you can find me at Psychology Today.
Perfect. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
So much.
I'm sure we'll do it again. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many different topics we can dive into. I just wanted to kind of let this first one be about you and, talking about what you see most of and counseling in general.
A lot of friends that just think it's only me, and I bring them in and I'm like, it is not only you. We are
Yeah.
not alone. Do not feel ashamed. Feel proud of the person you are and all of the life experiences you have had and the courage for coming in and wanting to talk about them and make some growth.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another enriching episode of Soul Wellness with Kristen. We hope the insights shared today have resonated with you, inspiring a deeper connection to your own journey towards holistic well-being. If you enjoyed today's episode, we invite you to subscribe, share, and reach out. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you meaningful content that educates, empowers, and uplifts. Remember, you are a vital part of this community, and together we're creating a ripple effect of positive change.